be a lot louder. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's nice to have such a big crowd, though, isn't it?
It is very nice. Give yourselves a hand. It is like freezing outside. And we had our fingers crossed that we wouldn't have to reschedule again. So thank you, everyone, for your diligence. I'm going to cut the sign-in line off at Mr. Rogers just so that we can begin the meeting. But in the meantime, as everyone is still signing in, if you don't mind, we'll just go around the room. If you could say your name and organization and or the property, business, or address that you represent. And we'll start with this gentleman. You get to be the lucky guy.
Hello.
Could you just stand up, please? We're going to make everybody do a little bit of exercise tonight as well.
My name is Jim Dietering. I'm with TLC Properties, and my company owns the property near 24th and Pratt, 3611 North 24th.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Malone?
Michael Maroney of Omaha Economic Development Corporation. We have a number of properties up and down the board.
My name is Worth. I own the subway at 24th and Pratt.
And we'll go with just this area here all the way back and then start with Dan in the front. So.
Say that again.
Say the same.
The same name, same place.
Exactly.
Do you vote for someone?
Terry Blackburn with the mayor's office.
Ma'am?
John Proctor, Neighborhood Action Effects.
Hello, Willis. I own the historic North Omaha Center, which is the TikTok Diner on 24th and Sprague. You'll go.
Okay. I'm Glenn Helen Lou. I have Easy Drive Package on 24th and Camden and Alpine Antiques on 24th and Spring.
Lieutenant Sam, my husband and I are the pastors and administrators of the Salvation Army on 24th.
Regarding the budget, I'm an attorney with the City of Omaha.
Soon the Middle Lake Ryan Basketball Center.
My name is Cook, City of Omaha Planning Department.
With Robinson, I'm the property 3713 North 24th Street.
Yeah, good with you. This is Street Barbershop.
Todd Cooper, Omaha OIC Neighborhood Association, and 24th Street Corridor and Neighborhood Alliance. My name is Juanita Johnson. I'm representing Church of God, located here on 24th and Parker. I'm also the chairperson for 24th Street Corridor Alliance, and also the president for Homeschool Neighborhood Association.
Hi, Ben Swan. I own the Carnation Ballroom, 2711 North 24th, and I'm a member of the Corridor Alliance as well.
Reggie Pope, property owner of 2511 Ames Avenue. Charles Winfrey, Fraternity Barbershop.
Ralph Blacksmith,
Julia Parker with Omaha Small Business Network. We have properties between 24th and Lake in Ohio.
Ralph Lansing, pastor of Mount Moriah Baptist Church on 24th in Ohio, and also we own the Concord Square property on 22nd and Paul Street.
I would have.
Tyler Chick, chairman of the Black Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Bob Partridge. I'm representing the property at St. Benedict Memorial Church between 24th and 25th and Grant Street. Also, I'm a property owner, a former property owner, some property between 24th and 25th and Maple Street.
Freeman Coleman Construction Company, property at 2310 North 24th Street.
Freddie Ellis, St. Paul Baptist Church, 1809 North 23rd Street, Brother Cross. Way.
Andrew of Washington, St. Benedict Moore, 2423 Grant.
My husband, for my wife, Marion, Littlefield Green, 24th Perspective.
one. Is that everyone?
Kenton Duncan, Acquisition Director for the Land Bank.
Anyone else we missed?
Chris Rogers, Douglas County Board, but representing Brady Person.
Chris Wayne, Pacific Planning Department.
Gary Ballard, with the Sunday Sites, 21 Sites.
What's up, brother?
Anyone else?
Sacred Heart Church and our Ministry Center on the 24th.
John Askew with the Q schools, one of which is Sacred Heart School.
Anyone we missed?
I'm Amanda Brewer with Habitat for Humanity, and I'm so happy to see so many people here tonight. Thank you for coming.
Let's give Amanda a hand and turn it up for
And I'm Clarissa Odolo with Habitat for Humanity, and thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. I believe there's some seats up front, and if you have a seat available, if you could kind of raise your hand. Let's not hold seats for our hosts or persons tonight, and that way we can hopefully squeeze a little more people in. I know there's an open seat right here. And again, if we have to open up my seat, I can move my feet. Yep, there's one right here, sir. And then there's several actually over here. There's about 3 here in the front. So, Councilman, we've just been doing introductions. We've actually done nothing to get started, so I don't know if you want to have a few words and then we can jump into our agenda. We're just getting people registered.
Okay, we're getting people registered and
sign in.
And we just started the agenda.
We haven't even started the agenda, so you want to say a few words?
I'll say a few words, just a few, because I don't want to waste people's time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Absolutely.
But the reason, and I think you probably gave them an outline of why we're here and what we're hoping to accomplish. What we would like to see and what we would like to work on the North 24th Street corridor is a business improvement district. And among the reasons for doing that, because it's more than one, but among the reasons for doing that is that you can, when you form a business improvement district, and we have 4 others that are currently in Omaha right now, the downtown, the Benson, the Blackstone, and the Dundee. And we wanted to create one along the North 24th Street corridor. Among the things that you can do with a business improvement district is, first of all, you have to raise money. And so there is kind of like a fee that businesses and others that may be included have to pay in order to get some improvements done. And I'll give you an example of the Benson improvement there. The Benson Street business development area and the streetscape that was created. The Benson Business District created the business improvement district where they put in, I believe it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bernard, but I think it was around $20,000 that they put in, somewhere around $20,000 that they committed to putting in for this streetscape. And the rest of it came from other sources, including, I think, the federal government. And others were involved in this $1.8 million improvement that was done. But it started with the Business Improvement District having skin in the game. What we want to have in our community is to have skin in the game. We don't want necessarily handouts. We want people to give us a hand with what we're attempting to do to recreate and redevelop 24th Street. From Cummings Street to Ames Street and further if we can. But for right now, from Cummings to Ames, what we want to do is create an improvement district so that we can begin to develop resources so that we can leverage those resources to do some other work that we want to have done in our community. I don't know, I haven't talked to everybody in here, but I know that the ones that I have talked to, I'm giving an example. I particularly, and it may just be me, I hate the sidewalks in front of Fairview Cafe and in front of Love Jazz. Very few, only one person can walk down the sidewalk at a time. Those trees need to go. The stands that hold the trees need to go, in my judgment. And I'm not really comfortable with the bricks either. But those are among the things that we can do with a business improvement district, and we can begin to first of all establish for the area. We need to establish a board if we can tonight, or at least a temporary board, so that we can start getting started with business and developing this business improvement district, because it's going to take a while. This is a tedious job, and it's going to take us some time. But I want us to stick with it, because at the end of the day, we're going to have a business improvement district that will help to change the face of 24th Street from Cummings to Ames. That's the reason why that's part of why we're here tonight. We have a PowerPoint that I know Lavanya wants to do. Lavanya's been heavily involved in this, as have other business entities. Michael's been involved. A number of other folks have been involved. And so this is what we want to try to get accomplished to start tonight. Tonight is just the beginning. And the beginning is going to be a little long and arduous as we move through the process. But once you move through the process and get this done and get it approved by the mayor and the city council, then we can begin raising funds to do some of the things that we want to do in the community. We've heard from a couple of individuals that would like to see a few things happen, one or two things happen. One is a marketing campaigns to address 24th Street. I asked somebody a question once. I said, tell me when the last time there was a shooting on 24th Street. And people wanted to say last week, last month, a couple of months ago, so forth and so on. Hasn't been one down there in a couple of years. We've been taking care of business, and we need to advance the business that we're doing. So this is an effort to do that. I'm not going to keep you long. I know you got a PowerPoint presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Bernard Indenbosch is here with us as well. He's a city attorney and one of the ones who spends a lot of time working on these BIDs. So we'll answer any questions you all might have, but I know there's a PowerPoint first, and I know you want to get into some of the more particulars about what a BID will do, and I'll be here to answer any questions you all might have. But nice crowd. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being interested in creating a business improvement district.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. And so I do have a PowerPoint that will probably repeat some of the things that have been talked about in a little bit of detail. And hopefully we can move through this as has been talked about to just kind of keep things moving. So tonight's agenda, primarily we want to talk about the boundaries of a business improvement district. The boundary is going to be essential into where we pull the board from. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We also would like to at least get people who are interested in a preliminary board. That board may go on to be a permanent board, but we do just want simply people interested tonight. We may not go into all the details of what the board involves, but we'll follow up with that information. And then we'll answer any questions that we have. You have. So. All right, so how many of you guys received the letter? You got the letter because you're here, but how many of you are familiar with what a business improvement district does? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so we don't have to go into a lot of information about that, but essentially, like Ben talked about, not only does it help to do what the local government cannot do, but I think one of the essential goals that I personally have for the business improvement district is to unify the corridor. I look at many of the faces in this crowd, and even though we are on North 24th Street as business owners, as patrons, I don't always see you guys. I don't always know what you're doing, where your properties are, what your values are, what your goals are. And so I think one of the most important things that was going to happen with this business improvement district is to unify the stakeholders in this area, okay? And that's one of the things we can do. How does it fund it? Well, we're all going to have to pay a special tax. However, when we look at what Benson did, and that's a real life model, how many of you guys can visually just see the improvement of Benson? Okay, I mean, 10 years ago, you flew past it, there wasn't a lot of places of interest, there weren't a lot of places to go to eat or shop, and now it's a point of interest. We all want to know the new clothing shops, the various businesses, because they put the work in to lift their area. The business improvement district there funded a $1.3 million project, and we'll look into that specifically. But the business owners only paid $20,000, and that wasn't individually. About 79 properties contributed to that $20,000. That was a total of only $250 a year. Okay, so I mean, again, we're not talking about thousands of dollars here. Depending upon where we start our budget, okay, we can start with low-hanging fruit. That may even be less, and then Bernard can even talk about as property, meaning residents, how that might even be less for you. Okay, because commercial businesses and our square frontage would pay more than those who have smaller properties. So we can get into that a little bit. Okay, so the $1.3 million Benson Streetscape project, it improves their sidewalks, to Ben's point. Erected new streetlights, pedestrian nodes at corners, new concrete seating. Some trees were replaced and kept. Landscaping included drought-resistant shrubs. Okay, so that was what we saw, at least from a visual perspective, of what happened in Benson. I know that I often walk down North 24th Street, and it is very hard for my husband and I to walk side by side. And some of the businesses that we actually frequent, like the Fairdeal Cafe, like the Fairdeal Market, we're there a lot. But the stroll and the walkability could be improved, as well as even how fast people drive down 24th Street. I mean, we're at the community garden on 24th and Spencer. Sometimes we actually see kids playing chicken trying to get across that street. And when we talk about safety, even if a property tax can save one life, because now we are putting speed bumps and putting stoplights in appropriate places, that's going to be well worth our investment, not to only make North 24th Street walkable, but also safer. All right, so here's the breakdown. That $1.32 million, the city of Omaha invested $700,000 through transportation bonds. Then another $325,000 came from Keywood Foundation, and then another $300,000 from an anonymous private donor. We have the ability as a business improvement district to leverage funds, okay? Meaning that we can be, if you will, the quarterback in this community to see funding come our way. And I can tell you that there are some funding opportunities already on the table for facade improvement, meaning that businesses can get one-to-one match. And how many of you know, as a business, especially in this area, funding is hard to come by. Okay, so the business improvement district could position us to receive matching dollars. And for-profit and matching dollars usually are not synonymous, okay? And my husband and I, when we first purchased Goodwin Spencer Street Barbershop from his father in 2015, and we went to the banks to get finance, I can tell you that was not easy to do by way of looking for loans. We've got great credit, but it really wasn't about our credit. We needed the area to be lifted, okay? How many guys have properties where you can't find a comp? You've got great credit, you've got a decent house, but you can't find a comp to remodel. A business improvement district can help lift the area, okay? So that not only business owners, but even residents can see the community lifted, so that we can get the values back out of the property that we own. On a side note, my husband and I, about 20 years when we first started having children, Laisha and Lael helped you guys sign in tonight. Wave your hand, Laisha and Lael. Yeah. Well, we lived on 4111 North 18th Street across his parents. Many of you guys might have been his neighbors growing up. And we moved away from the community because we didn't feel that it was safe. Okay? We wanted our kids to be able to play outside, without us having to wonder where they were at and who was around them. I mean, that's how we grew up. We could go a mile south, a mile east, a mile north. And, as long as you could hear your parents' name, call your name, you didn't have to worry, right? As long as you were home by the street lights, you were okay. But my husband and I, as our family, we are invested in this community. And initially, about 2 or 3 years ago, when property values started going down, we were like, are we willing to move back? Because we were looking at downsizing, our kids are grown, they're graduating from college, looking to downsize, looking to move back. And we realized our property values, we were about to take a sink, okay, in equity. All right? I mean, how you guys are, it's like a pit in your stomach. When you look at a home that you might have owned, might have been in your family for 2 to 3 generations, and now you have to look at, where's my investment? This is our opportunity to collectively join together to lift our personal investments. And just so you know how committed we are to this, we are looking to move back to North 18th Street because we believe not only in the business improvement district, but we believe in North Omaha. So you see, and these are these are numbers you could Google, that a total of $20,000 was invested through the business improvement district, businesses and properties. Roughly about 79, 80 properties invested in that. But come on now. I mean, we got finance people in the room, Ben. I mean, that's a good deal right there. All right, so the proposed property area. So there have been several of businesses in this room that have been meeting with us to try to discuss how do we define the business improvement district area. And we began to say, okay, coming to Ames, that's a long way. But as we looked at the scope of the area and realized a couple things, number one, we've got some power players on both ends of the street, okay? We've got McDonald's, we've got Logier, and then as you look in the middle, there are some, I love to say this actually, I'm a words person, some heavy hitters in the middle, like Bud Crawford, who actually owns property right on, right on North 24th Street. And so when you start looking at how you might break the district down, coming to Ames makes sense for a lot of reasons, okay? And some of the adjacent properties to North 24th Street. Number one, it's the historic continuity of the district, okay? So you've got some continuity that's existed for a long time. I know, for instance, Mr. Maroney remembers a much more thriving North 24th Street. I'm telling you, you're old. But that was the historic, district from coming to Ames. All right? And someone might say that's large, but we could break it up. And we could break it up not by having more than one BID, but we could break it up by having 3 zones. And these are simply proposed zones, but these zones would in effect create one BID with the goal to have representations from these different zones, okay? Coming to Lake, Ohio, Spencer, Lothrop to Ames, knowing that every zone may not need the same type of TLC. As you drive from Cumming, let's just say to Burdette, there has been a lot of improvement done. Not to say that there isn't improvement needed. And then when you look at the historic Jazz District, there's been a lot of infrastructure built in that area. But as you go past Ohio, kind of becomes, I don't want to call it a dead zone, but I don't know, I'll speak for myself, us on North 24th and Spencer would like a little loving, okay? And we've done what we can through a community garden, and we know many of you are doing what you can to continue to improve your areas and improve your properties. So, the thought would be that there would be 3 zones, 1 BID. Not only would we have representation from these zones, but then we would also break out projects to focus on specific zones. Now, there may be some far-reaching goals that everyone in the BID can take advantage of, like litter control, landscaping, and safety. These are low-hanging fruit items and things that everyone across the corridor would be able to benefit from. What we can realize together, I just talked about that, a unified business district along the historic North 24th Street corridor, collective representation of our businesses and community. Now, a business improvement district does not solve nor represent every layer of the community. You still need neighborhood associations. And neighborhood organizations. That's why we started Global Leadership Group, which represents the community garden. You still need business associations. And we hope that eventually, from the BID, there may be a separate association that emerges. But a business improvement district is actually a legal entity that can help us leverage our collective, not only representation, but also our collective dollars in a way that none of the other three, or none of the other two entities can quite do, and yet they're all important. I think if you think about Benson, they really have a great working model, and that is their business improvement district, their business association, and their neighborhood associations all work together, and yet they all have separate focal points that come together at different times. Okay, again, the access to funding for area improvements from philanthropic, city, state, federal, and banking channels. And then, of course, the marketing and branding to encourage investment in tourism. Now, this is a picture of Neighbor Fest, and I don't know how many of you guys got a chance to get down on the ground during Neighbor Fest, but there were people from all over the city who were down on North 24th Street in September of last year, enjoying North 24th Street. And we really got some great feedback about, wow, this is North Omaha. Wow, this is peaceful. Wow, this is fun. We need to take that vibe and broadcast it across the city and across the region. One of the things we have to keep in mind is that we are at the back door of North Downtown. All right? I envision a business improvement district being able to market during the College World Series. Okay? Those folks, listen, if you own a shop or a restaurant, those folks need to be flooding your place. Okay? They're not even 10 minutes away. But we've got to do what's necessary to draw and attract the visitors that are coming into the downtown area. Of course, we talked about this before, facade improvement. Right now, facade improvement is available at two different levels, on a philanthropic level and from the city. Okay, but again, we need a quarterback to be able to receive those dollars and then to distribute them to the local businesses that are eligible for them. The streetscape improvement, sidewalk repair, improved traffic flow, systematic litter control. When we have events like Christmas in the Village, it should just be something where it's an automatic process that there's cleaning and things that happen prior to those events so people can enjoy it to the utmost. And of course, landscaping. Now, I'm going to stop there because this gets into how the BID is formed and we're talking more about the board. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. But first of all, we want to talk about the outline proposed area. And so I'm going to scooch back here so we have something to look at. I know this is small, but we want to talk a little bit about the business improvement area and thoughts or questions about that. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it go past Ames because I'm on the north side of Ames.
Okay.
And there's a couple of other businesses down there too.
Yeah. What would you be proposing?
We all need facade improvement. Our sidewalks are okay. But, the facade.
When you say passing, so what is near you?
Oh,
pass?
I'm on Camden.
You're on
and
Camden.
the other, the barbecue business is on Saratoga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about making it longer? Thank you. Yes.
I see Creighton's in the room. Would they not be a great partner to go further back, Chris, or?
Chris, do you want to speak to that, representing Creighton?
I consider us being on the south end of that being in. And so we touch it, so we're in, and definitely willing to partner to some degree, but because of where the boundaries, and we got property there, so that, as far as we're concerned, that pulls the university in as a whole part.
Originally, to your point, Mrs. Lassiter, North 24th Street starts on 24th and Dodge. However, keep in mind that in order to get this approved legally, we need 51% of property and business owners to give us a yes. And that guy in the corner, that guy? No. he would like us to see 60. Okay? And so I think if it's manageable, I think if we get the representation, we can definitely consider, but we would have to then extend the boundary, and that includes more properties. We have a list right now of properties of over 750 properties in this designated area alone. Roughly 350 individual landowners. That means many of us in the room own more than one piece of property. So the larger we go, the more people we have to convince, and we represent probably about not quite 10% of that list. So I'm hoping that if nothing more, we can all, if we are in agreement with it, go start knocking on some doors and doing some phone calls and convincing our neighbors and friends that this is a good idea.
Among the other things that, before you, I'm sorry, Ms. Ellen, you go ahead.
Yeah, what I noticed on your bid, you started at Cummings Street to Lake. Why not start at Ohio and go further north? Because you have done improvements like from Cummings Street to the lake, and nothing has been done from Ohio Street further north. And that area is the most needed area in that area, instead of going back over what's already have been done. Mm-hmm. I know Councilman Gray mentioned about the trees. Hey, the trees is up there. We need trees down further north from Ohio down towards Ames and to 4th Street.
So to be clear, the proposed boundaries goes from Cumming to Ames. Okay, so the zones are
been already done down this way.
However, keep in mind when you talk about financial contribution, partnership, okay, leadership. You know, these guys at Subway, we want we want them in the game with us. You know what I'm saying?
They still can be in the game.
So I think that even though, yes, improvement has been done this way more than as you go north, and yet there's still vacant lots even in this area. We also want to look at long-term leadership and representation, not to mention the historic factor. So to your point, we're really not leaving. Notice, this is simply a proposed zone. Mm-hmm. This is not breaking it up. Does that make sense? The zone right now is proposed from Cumming to
For
Ames.
example, Ms. Ellen, we can, with the zone and the way we've got it broken out, and once you have at least a temporary board and starting to get started, you may not start from Cummings to Lake. You may start at Ohio and Spencer. That's where the business district may make its first efforts.
Okay.
In terms of this, so it's not etched in stone that you will start at Cummings. What is etched in stone is that we would like to get all the businesses in the area from Cummings to Ames to contribute so that we can continue to build 24th Street. But we may not start at either, you may end up starting at Lothrop to Ames, right? It doesn't matter. It's just, for, the areas that need it the most will probably be the ones that'll get the love the most in the beginning, okay? But again, and the other thing I'll say, there are significant numbers of folks, both profit and non-profit, that want to help move this along, that are not in this court. But they want to help move this along. You can call it guilt, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, there are entities that want to help us move this along. There are dollars to be had, and there's work to be done. And I think combining those two, I think we can make 24th Street begin to be what it was back when we were talking about when Michael first knew about it and all that, 67, 68. When you had businesses and other things. I don't mean 67, 68, Mike. I didn't mean years. It's okay. But, you know, I just wanted you to know that, and it's simply because those are the three nodes, because it's such a long, if you keep in mind now, Benson is only like about 8 blocks. Dundee is only like about 3 blocks. Blackstone just increased to where they're about 12 blocks, 15 blocks. Probably, yeah, not even that many. So we're talking about the largest business improvement district to date so far.
And keep in mind, even if we say initially that the BID begins from coming to Ames, and that's what we decide upon as a collective group, it doesn't mean that in the future we could not expand it, right? Especially if we can begin to see some successes. I mean, I know we will. And so keep in mind that even if, for the sake of, again, getting that 60%, for the sake of, you know, moving the process along, if we decide coming to Ames is where we begin, pardon me?
65.
Oh, you said 60% before.
I changed it.
Oh, stop. So again, your 65%, you know, I don't know how many people we registered in here initially. Amanda, I think you said we had 70 chairs, and some of these are city representatives. We would have to see a lot more people turned out and informed to get a yes even at the district we're proposing, okay? But then, if enough people want to see it expanded and we can get the majority, I mean, we want to go with the majority. Any other thoughts on the boundaries or, but those are good questions. Yes, sir.
No questions regarding the boundaries, but I'm just curious as to when you consider the mixture going from Ohio north, we have a considerable amount of residential mixed in with business. What's the impact?
Right now, what we're attempting to do is make sure that we got the businesses in first, and then because you don't want to, like for example, some of the residential properties that you're talking about, they wouldn't be able to afford the fee, right? So we're exempting them for right now because they wouldn't be able to handle that. So it's just the businesses in the area right now, kind of the business and the business owners in the areas who we're kind of focusing on, because you got to start somewhere. And so you start with the business community, because if there's going to be some likely people that can pay some sort of I don't want to call it a tax, but whatever you want to call it, that goes into a BID fund is what it is. We want to be able to make sure that we can capture those businesses, those best business entities that first of all agree, and secondly can pay whatever the fee is. And that fee is going to be decided really by the board members.
Based on the budget.
Based on the budget. Based on the budget that you all set. We don't set the budget. All we do is approve. The reason why I say 65% is I would rather see not necessarily a super majority, but a good majority of people to move forward with a business improvement district. Some are not going to want to buy into it right away, and you just have to kind of bring them along a little bit. But if we got that critical 65%, that's something that I believe I could take to the city council and to the mayor.
I thought it was 60%.
I changed my mind.
Keep writing them on that 60%.
Yes, so if we can do 60%, we're good.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
go with 60. I called that. Thank you.
Contribution to the BID.
Contribution to the BID.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I favor the way you have it laid out there, because from Cummings to Lake, that's our most powerful position. We have the most players there. We have the most that we can present to the business district. We are up and running. I think then from Ohio to Spencer is basically laid out. I think that takes a little year. The rest of that, I think those two things, I think where it is. But right now, in me, 24th and Lake Street, That's my heart. And 24th and Lake Street goes all over the world. So in other words, we also have to put history in it. Then Cummings Street goes all the way to the airport. So we need to be asking folks for doing some stuff that, you know, Cummings Street kind of bound us in. So we need to focus on Lake Street, going all the way up. Then we just move it. I think it's beautiful, Ben. Whoever put this together, this is what we've needed for a long time. And the people that's in this room. I was at a meeting about a week ago, and they said, and I'm just going to say it like this. I'm the chairman of the Black Chamber of Commerce, so I speak from a black perspective as much as I can. They said at a meeting last week or week before that we as a people were the third largest city in the state of Nevada, collectively. So what we have to do right now is be collective. I don't care about the arguments, but take them in the back room. But right now, let's unify and move forward. Ben, whoever put this together, this is what we basically need. And recognize that folks that's been here doing the work all the time. Don't forget the neighborhood. Don't forget 24th Street corridor. Don't forget all those things. And I shut up because I want to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we need the voices of men and women like him who've been doing the work longer than I would have been alive, okay? And I stand here really representing Dan Goodwin Sr., Andre Goodwin, and their legacy in the community. And so many of us are standing on your shoulders, sir. So we don't want to leave your perspective out. And I do think that this needs to be an intergenerational effort so that we can really capitalize on even the history and the legacy of North 24th Street. Many of us in the room, I look at Miss Littlefield Freeman, you know, she's representing her mother, you know, and the work that she's done, and others, you know. So we really do have to remember that this is a multi-generational effort as we go forward. So thank you, sir. Thoughts? Yes, sir.
I don't want to get overly technical, but in terms of the zones, do you want those zones to run from Cummings to Ohio, and Ohio to Spencer to Haynes? I mean, there's a block between Lake and Ohio that's not Beverly, but we're just assuming.
Sure. And you know what? Any of those technicalities we're
Yeah,
willing to
we will
revisit.
do that.
Absolutely. And if there's something more that makes sense.
I got you.
That's why we need you on our board. Hey, that's why we need people like you on our board. You know, we're necessarily. If this doesn't make sense, the idea is that it would be broken out into zones so that we could digest it a little easier. But we appreciate that. Yes, sir.
So then with the zones, is the idea that at least one board member would come from each of those zones as well then?
Ideally.
Yeah.
Although I think we have to be careful not to write it into bylaws, because you might get to a point 5-10 years down the line, and I'll stop and say we are also looking at a sunset for this initial project, right? So that means that we may say, give us 5 years. Give this idea 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And let's revisit it. And if all of us think that, you know, it needs to be canned, we can can it. But I don't think we will. I think we're going to realize that it needs to be extended. However, I think ideally, yes, we would want representation from these zones. But I think it would be something that we would be willing to, as long as we have representation from the area, with the idea of focusing on the representation from the zones if we can get it. Other thoughts or questions?
Let me remind one other thing too. The city approved, the mayor gets a copy of who's going to be on the permanent board, but those individuals come from you all. The mayor just rubber stamps, and then the city council double rubber stamps. the board members are going to come from you all. The work is going to come primarily from you all. The city's responsibility is primarily in helping you set it up. And I think the way that works is when they set a budget and they want things done, we pay ahead of time.
We've typically been advancing.
We've been advancing. The city advances you the money. Okay, to do the projects that you want. You set a budget. Let's say we set a budget for $25,000, and say with that $25,000, you want all street improvement. You want to make sure that the sidewalks and all of that is taken care of. with that $25,000. The city will front you the money, so to speak, and then they bill you at the end of the year.
At the end of the year.
Yeah, we try to bill at the end of the year. So that's kind of like how it works. But absent that, the city's not in it that much, nor am I in it that much, other than as an advisor to you all. But this is yours to run. Once we get it up and running, it's yours to run. It's our job to back you up. It's my job to find other dollars and resources to make something bigger happen. And I can promise you that is going to happen. But in the interim, this is going to be, like I said, tedious work, and most of that work is going to be you all's work with guidance from us.
Absolutely. I have a question for Bernard. Does the BID have the ability to buy property?
I suppose theoretically within the cabinet of the statute, none of our BIDs have.
Right. I'm just thinking as a lot of the vacant land that is available. I mean, if you look at...
I don't know that the BID, because, the problem with, the BID, because it's intended to be self-determinative. You guys get to decide what you want to do and how you want to spend your money. But you also have a fairly large BID, and so you want to be somewhat careful that people in some parts of the BID don't feel like they're being left behind, where all the resources are going to other parts of the BID, which is obviously one of the reasons you talk about doing zones, because that gives you an ability to target particular types of activities, maybe for particular areas and like that. But I think acquiring property and acting kind of a land bank or doing that kind of stuff, that's probably fairly far down the road, because that's going to require quite a bit more investment than you're probably going to see people are going to be able to understand, tolerate it at the front end.
Sure.
But there are opportunities. Bernard just mentioned one opportunity for a partnership, and that's with the land bank. So if there is some interest in property, and if we can find a way to do it, the land bank can hold that property without the BID paying property tax on it until we determine what we want to do.
Thank you. Yes.
Technical question, is it 60 or 65% of all the businesses have to be part of it, or every single property?
Right now, just the businesses.
Okay.
Just the businesses and property owned businesses in the area.
Is it of each 65% of the businesses themselves, or a frontage, a square foot frontage?
Well, frontage determines how much you pay. As long as you're along 24th Street and you're a business, then you're eligible to be part of this particular BID at this point.
Let me answer the technical, because that's the practical question. So the way the law is set up for, first of all, the first thing we have to do is define an area, and then the council will create that area. The next thing that happens is the council then will appoint members to the Business Improvement Area Board. That's, as Councilmember Gray talked about, we're going to look inside. Who do you want to be the people on that board? That board is then the one who's going to be responsible for setting up a lot of the details that we're talking about. What are you going to do? What are the interests? Are there going to be zones? Are the zones going to overlap? Are there going to be... All those details are things that board is going to be responsible for putting together, telling me, this is what we want to do. I get to draft the document that ultimately goes to the city council that creates the business improvement district. And that's what authorizes spending $5,000 for litter prevention. Whatever it is that the board itself wants to do. That's why I say it's self-determinative. And then that ordinance is what creates the BID. And it's going to take a little bit of time. So the answer to your question is, whatever the board determines is to be the proper assessment method. And the most common one, most legally defensible one, which is what Councilmember Gray just talked about, which is front footage along 24th Street. The statute says you can create a business improvement district as long as more than 50% of the people of the assessable units don't protest. But I think what Councilmember Gray is saying, hey, The 50% number, 4951 might work in the statutes, but as a practical matter, that's a difficult number to take to the city council. If you've got a 5149, you're going to have a hard time getting city council mayoral support to create a business improvement district. So I think what he's telling you is, hey, before we feel comfortable carrying the water, is we're going to need to have 60% of the businesses in favor of it in order to be comfortable carrying the water. Because I'll be honest with you, I've been to a couple meetings, and I think the gentleman from the Black Chamber of Commerce was absolutely right. My biggest fear, as I listen to everybody, is that there's a lot of people who have interests in particular things. There's a lot of people who have a lot of history of things that they're interested in. But if everybody is so worried about protecting their own their turf or their whatever, this is going to be a lot of talk, and it's going to be really difficult to move forward. The BID is a tool that has allowed Dundee, Benson, Blackstone. I mean, it's been a huge tool in Blackstone. It's been a tool to allow businesses to really be able to develop, see people come in. Even in downtown, you see it. And I mean, that's my word of warning to you is, conceptually, keep moving forward with it. You know, you may not get everything that you want, but if you're if you're seeing progress that you think is going to help your community, help your area, the area grow, that's what the hope is with the business improvement district. I'll get off my high horse. I apologize. I wasn't not trying to be on a high horse, but that's my biggest concern as I hear what people are saying. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to ask another question. In the other areas where the improvement district had been, did they have to go through all of this also, this long waiting and all this kind of stuff? Because like downtown, all of a sudden they popping up with a motel and doing all that. I mean, why do we have to go through this long waiting?
That's a little different. All the BIDs have had to do that.
So I started working with the city. I started working with the city in 1996. They started working with the Downtown Business Improvement District in 2000. I started working with them in 2000. It took 4 efforts to create a Downtown Business Improvement District in 8 years before they created their district. Blackstone took 3 years. Elkhorn took 5 years. Dundee and Benson, those were actually created way back in the mid-'80s for single projects, and then they were recreated. So taking 2 to 3 years, or 2 years, and it can be done in 2 years. It's just a matter of people getting together and being, you don't let all the people who have their own variety of interests kind of tear away and stop it from moving forward. We can create a board, frankly, in a matter of a month to a month and a half. You could create an ordinance to business improvement district in 3 or 4 months if there was consensus to do it. I think what people sometimes look is, this is an easy thing, other people will do it for us, and then we can get started. It isn't. This is going to be self-determined. You are funding whatever the business improvement district is going to do. And you also have to decide what your priorities are. And believe me, everybody has different priorities, different things that they see. And there's a potential for everybody to get some of what they want. It's probably going to be difficult for everybody to get everything they want.
I'd like to add really quickly, we talk about a timeline, and one of the things that I don't know if all of you are familiar with, but from 24th and Worth to Sprague, to 24th to 27, is the city's holistic neighborhood revitalization plan, right? That means that conceptually the city has committed, I think, $12 million over the course, Chris, to 2020 to invest in that area. And I believe that a business improvement district could help capitalize on that effort as well. So there are quite a few things in our favor as landowners and property owners on North 24th Street that we do need to consider. I think that for the sake of time, what we'd like to do, are there any other questions about the business improvement area in and of itself today?
I just want to have one comment about time. I think the benefit that we have is that some of the early ones took a long time to be created. It's become a lot faster process because everybody's kind of learned how to do it a little bit better. The city's learned a little bit how to help create, how to help you. And I think so I don't anticipate it taking that 5 years I was talking about, but please appreciate When we talk about time and the time ending a couple of years, that's actually relatively fast when we look at historically how long it's been for some of the areas to kind of get moving.
Yeah, because like the ride and everything, that was in '67 prior you came to Omaha, and nothing had been done down in this area.
Yeah, but that was, well, a lot of it's intentional, but that was seriously intentional.
I also want to keep in mind that I've talked to several nonprofits, as has been, and although the nonprofits themselves would not come up under the tax, many of them have been willing and have agreed, at least verbally, to also support the business improvement district as well. So keep in mind that we do have a lot of support of not just the property owners and the for-profit businesses, but also the nonprofits that sit along the corridor as well. So then, I think at this time...
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Then you said something I need to have a little more clarity on, and then the gentleman reiterated it. After the business district is put together, then the city has to okay it?
No. The city has to okay it in the beginning. They have to. We have to make sure that you got 51%.
And
that's the city's. That's what the city's ordinance calls for. 51%.
But this gentleman spoke of something as after that's done, then the city will put together a mechanism that will operate it?
No.
So,
Make that clear, please.
Yeah, just to help clarify.
All right.
So there's the two-part process. The first part is creating the area board, the board area. So we talked about that, and then you create a board that's appointed by the council mayor. That becomes the North 24th Street Business Improvement Area Board.
Say that again.
The group of people appointed by the council become the North 24th Street Business Area Board. And their task then is to create a business improvement district in the North 24th Street business area. The mechanism that actually creates a business improvement district is an ordinance approved by the city council. And so that ordinance will say, these are the type of things that this board wants to do. This is the budget for those types of things. This is the assessment methodology. How are people going to pay?
Bernard, I know what he's asking. I know what you're asking. I know what you're asking specifically. The city council will create that board, but that board is going to come from you all. You tell us who it is.
Yeah.
They have no ability to alter that.
No.
No, the board has to come within the business improvement.
So this body will present that to them.
You will present your slate of board members. Mm-hmm. We will approve them for the initial board, because you're talking about now a temporary board that has to do all this work that we talked about. But that temporary board, the council will approve that board, but the members of that board will come from you all.
Okay.
And they have to come from
That's
this
the
area.
question you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
all right.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Well, what happens after the temporary board? So you just said that the board is temporary. So, and that's the board that you basically understand. And then the board after that.
No. Let me back up.
The use of the word temporary is probably a little misleading. It's not a temporary board.
Okay.
They're appointed by the council, and as the council member said, you're going to tell people, the people have to be business owners, property owners, users of space, or residences within the boundaries of the North 24th Street Business Improvement Area. That slate of people, it's probably a minimum of 6, up to 9, 10, or maybe up to 12, then goes suggested to the mayor's office. The mayor's office puts in to appoint them to the council. That is something that as we defer to the boards to do that. We want you to have the people representing you that you want. Once the business improvement district is created, that board will continue to remain. They oversee the business improvement district within the parameters of that ordinance that creates it. So if we say we want to do a clean and safe program, we want to have litter, we want to spend $5,000 to start with on clean and safe, litter, trash pickup. That board is going to be responsible for overseeing it, deciding what contractor they want to have do it, and making decisions. The city will advance the money at the end of the year, there'll be a bill sent out to everybody based on how much the BID spends within the parameters of that ordinance. So that ordinance is the thing that creates what are you going to do, how much is it going to cost, how do you want to pay for it. So that board that's created is tremendously important because it's obviously the one that's got to take the temperature of the community and do the things that the community wants.
And then any replacement will come through that same mechanism.
Correct. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, you know, keep in mind that there are several positions on a board that have to be filled. You need a president, you need a secretary, you need a treasurer. Ideally, you want people with the skill set to be able to assist with that. We envision having a working board, and I hope that doesn't shy too many people away, but there is a lot of work to be done. And so I want to get into that. So, Ben, Bernard, you just talked about essentially the process of how the board gets started. And this should be in your letter. And also, if you signed up via email tonight, I will send out the outline again, just so that you have all of this in case you want to review it.
Before you move on, here's a question. There will be, and I know you don't want to use the word tax, so assessment on those property owners that are in the BID.
Yes.
Then is it those property owners throughout the bid are the ones who would be eligible to be on the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I get.
You have to live within the district to be on the board.
That's different than what I just asked. I think that if you're a property owner, affected property owner, one is going to be having to pay that assessment.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
essentially your name needs to be on the deed, or you need to be, I mean,
I just wanted to.
yeah, your name's either on the deed, or you represent a business that is in the area by way of it being a CEO and or resident. Of course, we'd like to, again, see the skill set, you know, when we start talking about what a board and what you need to make up a board to make it effective, and even hopefully to move our processes along.
And one other question, city, y'all identified who those affected property owners are?
We sent letters out. Yes.
Yeah, that's why everyone's here, but there was a total of 750 plus properties identified. And
Those aren't businesses.
Those are businesses. Yeah.
No.
That okay, man.
That's why, because we had to back off. When we first got the list, it had about 700 units on it.
Yeah.
And so we had to define, we had to back it off and just be business owners.
Oh, okay.
And there are some residents only because they fall directly on North 24th Street. But again, Ben talked about them being exempt. But it still makes sense for them to be informed because essentially they lie within the boundaries.
In some BIDs, residences do pay assessments. In others, they do not. You understand as I understand, and the discussion here has been, the intention is that residents would not pay assessments in this particular business improvement. In downtown, residents pay assessments at 50% the regular rate. So in Benson, they pay 50% the regular rate. Dundee, they don't pay at all. Blackstone, they don't pay at all. Elkhorn, they don't pay at all. So, but that's ultimately will be something that's written into that ordinance to make absolutely clear. Hey, if you're here, single family, residential, whatever you'll have to define, you're going to be exempt from paying whatever contribution assessment, whatever work assessment.
So the assessment will go to all property owners regardless of whether they voted yes or no.
Correct.
If it passes.
Correct. Everybody that's determined to be an assessable unit will be required to contribute whether they support it or not. And that's why one of the reason that Dundee the reason Dundee has a business improvement district is there were about 7 or 8 property owners who were paying for all the common stuff, and there were about 5 or 6 of their businesses that were benefiting from it but never contributing. The business improvement district there was used as a mechanism to make sure that everybody contributed.
I think the other part is the voice. I mean, you're also talking about now having a voice in some of the changes that are taking place, and changes are happening quickly. And I just want to drop the G word, gentrification, and that's something when, you know, on the ground in the community, usually you start talking about revitalization and the G word comes up out of every person's mouth. And this is a way for us to organize to now be a player. This is a legal entity, okay? So if It's not just simply another group. It is a legal entity that then has to be, if you will, reckoned with when changes come into the community. Dan and then Ben.
I think it's important to point out that we use the G word, that it's important that we do this and get this done, as Ben often says. It's going to get done with
24th
us,
Street's going to get developed.
with us or without us.
With us
So
or
if we
without
don't
us,
mobilize
24th
it
Street's going to get developed.
and make these things happen, gentrification will happen because of it.
So just to understand the 60%, approximately 300 property owners, let's say only 100 cast a vote, period. We can't reach the other 200. Of those 100 that cast a vote, 80 say yes, 20 say no. Does that mean that we only have 80 of the 300, or does that mean 80% support?
That could be depending on where they're located. If they're located in a certain area and there's 80%, we go with that. If we're talking about 300 properties along Ames Street, then I think we have to revisit, what we want to do, and if we want to reduce the number to a certain extent so that we can reach that 51% threshold.
Does everybody have to vote that is an affected property owner? Does everybody receive something from the city that requires them to vote?
Well,
How does that work?
as I tried to explain to you before, the voting idea has nothing to do with anything that's in the statute that talks about creating a business improvement district. That's merely a check mechanism that Councilmember Gray is talking about to make sure that we have support. He doesn't, because what happens with the city council is, the statute says, as long as less than 50% of the accessible units don't protest. That's, if there's 300 businesses that are, you look at the front footage of those 300 units, let's say there's 300,000 front feet. If I don't have a petition signed by 150,100 of those things, it gets to go through. Well, that's the legal principle. That is not a practical principle. The 80% or the 60% number that Councilmember Gray is talking about is really a practical thing. He wants to see support in the community before he goes to the council members and tries to get it created. So I guess I don't know that, because it's kind of a feeling for support, I don't know that there's no magic rules that go with it. The city's not going to take a vote. The only business improvement district that I've been involved with that took a vote was the Downtown Business Improvement District, and that's led to failed efforts number 2 and failed effort number 3. Successful effort number 4, they didn't do a vote, but by then there was only, of the 2,500 pieces of property in the downtown BID, there was about 6 people that were opposed to it. Because they did a lot of work where they went out and worked in the community, got a lot of consensus, worked through a lot of people's questions and problems. And that's where, this kind of a meeting, and there'll be more, hopefully does that.
And the other thing, I wanted a copy of the list tonight because I want to know the businesses that were here so we know the businesses we need to contact.
Absolutely.
We're going to contact, because some of those I'm going to personally contact.
Do we need to get a proposal drawn up so they can sign a proposal that they are in favor for a business district?
I think that's a process that the initial board will take on. But tonight, one of the things we want to do, I think 2 things as we kind of wrap up. But to your point, yes. To answer that, yes.
Okay.
So first of all, and I don't know if we want to go in favor of, but the proposed district as it is today would be from Cumming to Ames. How many are in favor of the proposed district from Cumming to Ames?
Can I make a comment about it?
Yeah.
In the last 30 years, I've been involved in different things in South Omaha. And what I have seen is when something is this big, it's impossible to get people to agree. And even if they agree at the beginning, you get people paying assessment or whatever you want to call it on the farther south or the farther north, and they will be arguing about spending money in the middle, and nothing gets done. I saw 8 great projects for South Omaha that never got any place because they were too big. And then if you get $25,000 or $30,000 or whatever, it gets diluted. You know, if you're going to spend $5,000 on cleaning on 2 miles, 2.1 miles, you're not going to accomplish anything. Just as a suggestion, know that, I mean, we love to participate because whatever happens to the community for better, it's going to benefit everybody. You know. But it's in that side, I really believe that you are going to be fighting too many battles that you wouldn't need to if you start little and then keep going and make a difference. You know, $25,000 in a small portion will make a big difference. And then the other people will say, I want the same benefit. But if you make it that long, they won't see any difference.
So, sir,
that's just personal opinion based on experience with great projects that I got tired and stopped going to them meetings. Because
you're right.
Everybody wanted to be the boss, everybody wanted to be his block to get the benefit. It just created chaos.
And I can appreciate your concern. I think a couple things. And I don't want to dig too far into South Omaha, but I am born and raised in South Omaha, so I do know the area very well, and I currently work there. One of the things that Business Improvement District was trying to do, if I'm correct, is extend from 24th and Q, then across that bridge to Vinton. So now you have a physical barrier, okay, that literally kept a unified, continuous business district as you cross 75 or 80 West and that bridge. So I think that overpass was a big physical barrier to the physical unity of that area. Now I would also like to propose that the district we're proposing is the original historic district. So somewhere down the line, somewhere in the beginnings of Omaha and North Omaha, someone thought that coming to Ames made sense for a business district. So really when you start talking about where we define it from, we're going back to the vibrancy of North 24th Street. And I'm here seeing some head shake who remember the vibrancy of North 24th Street included a district from coming to Ames. Not to mention, I am thrilled at the consensus in this room. Okay? The feedback, the consensus was, we didn't know necessarily what to expect, but I think it's been positive. And one of our primary goals is to bring unity to this corridor. And I present to you as business owners, how do you leave out McDonald's? How do you leave out Goodwin Spencer Street Barbershop? How do you leave out Love's Jazz? How do you leave out Bud Crawford? How do you leave out Logier? I mean, you got heavy, again, no pun intended, but you got heavy hitters going all along this corridor. And if we can get their leadership, their input, and their financial contribution, I propose that we begin, because we can always retract, but the unity, I mean, we just had the woman who lives on North 24th in Camden say, what about us? I think at least if we can say from coming to Ames that we're trying to at least have a historical precedent, that's where we should begin. With that in mind, and because we also want to at least identify some who may be interested. This is not you signing your name on the dotted line to be a board member, but I also want to say, to your point, again, Benson wasn't dealing with $20,000. They were dealing with their $20,000 contribution. They did a $1.3 million project that affected that entire corridor, their entire district, okay? How many of you guys are thinking we should at least move forward initially with coming to Ames? Can I see a show of hands, please? Okay, so overwhelmingly, how many are opposed?
He's not opposed. He's just pointing out
Sure,
where the barrier
I think what it is,
Point out the barrier.
Yeah,
It would
but
be easier.
it would be easier,
to
and I,
get the 65% approval of business owners, those are smaller.
yeah. And my thought is, who do you cut off?
It's a tough decision.
Yeah.
You feel like you're cutting off your left arm and then it's not your right. So
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is for ease and less illusion and make it easier to start off with.
You know, but I think it's 50-50. I think there's some good to that, there's some bad to that, because it is a challenge when you go that long, but there's also, I think it's an opportunity because of that quarter, and I think you can break it down into those zones, and then each zone can kind of focus on itself, although it may have to go back to the bigger
Right.
board.
Representation.
But I think that's where
You know,
keep some continuity and consistency at the same
Yeah.
time, although you do some things different.
you don't land in the clouds if you don't shoot for the stars. And I mean, that's a played out kind of saying, but if we fail at this, then we can go for a smaller one where there's the strongest support. But this is really ambitious, and there could be a lot of reward if we put in the work.
I think too that in each zone, you have a lot of people that are I believe will be champions, whether they're on the board or not. If you have vision and recognize, hey, I want this to work, not just for me, but for everybody, because if it's good for me, it's good for everyone. When I look down from where I grew up off 18th Street, right off of 16th, I'm like, man, I can see downtown coming through. I don't get, oh man, they're trying to, I look at that as a positive. I said, I got to get my stuff ready because downtown is coming my way. I want to capitalize on that. And so I'm going to be a champion for this, for the whole community. And we have a generation of youth that need to see this happen. And so hopefully we can come together and make it happen.
Yes. On the request for board members, I'm assuming, and we talked about it a little bit, is that must live or work, or just must live?
You must own property or represent an own business, yeah.
That own business.
Or nonprofits, or not, yeah.
You can own a business, you can be you can have a lease where you run a business.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, theoretically you can be a resident, but I know that initially, because it's an attempt to approach the business owners, we're trying not to avoid that. But it's basically property owner, user of space, tenant, any of those. If you've got a connection there within the boundaries that's connected to a business.
I think every resident wants to see thriving businesses in where they live, so it's a benefit to those residents.
Yes, sir.
So no nonprofits.
That's actually not the case. So nonprofits don't fall under the contribution. However, since it's not a tax side, right? But they can participate in the board, and many have vocalized that they do plan to give some type of contribution. So if you do represent a nonprofit, then you can step forward to be considered for the board.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Does the BID have a say on what businesses come into that area?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Does the BID have a say as to what businesses come into the area?
No, I don't think the city has the right to decide private property rights.
The only thing I would say is no, certainly, but the board, because it's a collaborative effort of people who are going to be recognized as having some clout that way, I would presume would have some say in being able to influence the planning board or the city council as far as restrictions or things like that. But there's no way that we could say the BID or frankly or the city or anybody else says no, we don't like that particular person or that particular business. But collectively, there is going to be clout with the BID board, which is going to have some political influence to be able to impose limitations or restrictions so that people are conducting themselves in a manner that's conducive to the area.
Yes, sir.
We could be here all night. My thing is this is self-determination for North Omaha. And so in other words, this board took together, it hooks us in politically. Even if somebody want to move in, it gets us back to a voice of being able to recognize who we are and what we want. We do that if we stay collectively. We need to go and pick these 6 folks that we need. Only thing I ask for is integrity.
Yes.
Okay, commitment and loyalty to North Omaha. So other than that, I'm ready to move.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you, sir.
I'd just like to speak as an outsider. My husband and I just got here 6 months ago. And I'm from St. Louis, lived in Chicago, Milwaukee. My husband's from Detroit. And I have never seen an area that doesn't move out of the struggle and is just like all in to like lift it up. So not gentrification, but like how can we lift each other up so that it's more profitable for everyone? And for me as an outsider, it's super inspirational. So I hear you saying, I totally get how, it's harder to get 20 people to agree than 2. But just from an outsider's perspective, maybe some encouragement is, I think it's beautiful coming in and seeing how many people are willing to, put into improvement. So
Thank you for your comments. Yes.
Okay, and I'm just going to say this. So coming here, I'm the Neighborhood Association president for OIC, and so just so people know where OIC is, I'm 24th and I'm 27th and Lake to 15th and Lake, and then all the way over to Benny, and then 27th to 15th. Okay, so that's a large area of what you guys are speaking about in here, but I didn't really get any information, and so I didn't really know what to expect coming in here, and I think that's kind of the feeling that some of the people that are in my position, they didn't know what to expect if they're here. They didn't know what to expect coming in here or what this was about or anything like that. So, having it explained that this was not just an exclusionary piece. This was, you were talking to the business owners first, and then you were going to reach out maybe later on to the neighborhood association. I have a better understanding of that. But you may have garnered more support with sending the letters out to everyone, and then by paragraph saying, okay, on this date, we will be meeting with the business owners, and then at a later date, we will be meeting with the whatever, the neighborhood associations or however, or we're, or this, however you want to word it. But then, just be able to be more inclusive, because then you have more people that will be on board with what you're talking about, instead of getting a little more pushback. And then another thing is, okay, I'm just, I'm getting any pushback at all, or getting maybe not having what this gentleman is saying. You maybe have more people where there's 2 agreeing and not 20, is what I'm saying. Is you may be able to just solidify that 20, is all I'm saying. And then partly because I also work for Omaha Star, and so we didn't get anything about this at all. So
you didn't get a letter, although the address is listed and the city sent it out, and that's how.
Yeah, we didn't get anything. We didn't get anything with the Star. And so now when I saw our logo up there and it was prominently used in this, it was kind of,
it's a business on North.
Yeah, we didn't get anything, so I could represent the Star.
Let me just tell you that when we first got the list, and this had to go out through the city council, our budget wouldn't permit us to send out that many letters. That's why because it was about 370.
Yeah.
So we had to focus on it, and what we wanted to, and I didn't want to do it anyway because I wanted to focus on the businesses first. Because it started getting too many people involved, it started to get really ridiculous. So we start with the businesses first. But we had initially thought about doing it your way, but when we got the actual number, we don't have the budget for it.
Yeah. And this has been a volunteer effort, and so that's why this meeting is here now, and that you are in the room, is because our goal was to include as many people as we could. But there have been some who have been meeting, working, strategizing about this. But other than our collaboration with the city, purely a volunteer effort. So we do our best to communicate, hence tonight's meeting. Laisha, you have a thought or a question? Because as we wrap up, we don't. Why don't you just proceed? Really, what we'd like to do is, if you're interested in being on the board and you meet the qualifications, because again, there are legal qualifications. These are just expectations to some degree, because you might say, well, what is it required? We really, in order to move this along, we'll probably be meeting twice a month, just so we can really dig in, get that strategic plan, get that budget, because we want to bring this proposal to the city council as soon as we can build consensus for it, right?
Yeah.
Also, after which, at least be available for a monthly meeting. We're going to need a president, secretary, treasurer. They do have to have certain skills. And then we also talked about communications or marketing skills as well. If you want to simply talk to me after, if you're interested in being on the board, I think that might be the best thing to do. And then that way I can make sure I have your contact information. Have we missed anything? Yes, ma'am.
Levani, how do you, if someone does know someone that would be interested, you do have a distribution list that you're emailing, right?
That's what we tried to collect tonight.
So people could also add, they could email you and maybe add people to that list to be more.
If they follow the guidelines.
Not for the board, just to
right.
stay informed.
Well, also the guidelines of property owner.
Okay.
Because we do want to keep the conversation with the stakeholders who are actually going to have, they're going to take the brunt of the tax. I mean, we can get all day long. Contribution. Really, you can have a lot of voices, but it's not in your pocket. You can say what you will. And I think that has been one of the reasons why these conversations have been so progressive, because there have been people who've been in the room who have a true stakeholdership and who are looking at strategic ways to move this community forward.
So one of the things, there were a couple earlier meetings that Ben set up where he brought in other BIDs who shared their experience and how they got going and their failures and their successes. And Blackstone was a good example because they have the BID, they have a business association that's separate from the BID, and they have a Blackstone Neighborhood Association that's separate from both of those. And they sometimes work together, they sometimes have differences of opinion, but they pretty much overlay a very similar area. And so hopefully, in the Voice of Unity, the BID can promote the businesses and the property owners in increasing that tax base, and work with neighborhood associations, which there are several in the corridor that are, and the Corridor Alliance and all the other amazing groups that are part of this.
Yes. Any other thoughts or questions? We appreciate your time. Ben, have we missed anything? Bernard, Bridget, have we missed anything at all? Yes, please.
They know more about it than I do, so if they say we haven't missed anything, then we haven't missed anything.
Have we missed anything? She's sitting back here quiet. In the
know.
end, we got to go through her. Leisha.
I just want to say, so we've had a lot of different perspectives from those who preceded us in the efforts of what we have today on North 24th Street, and then people who are
They should come forward so they're not crooking their neck. Thank you.
But as a young person who has grown up and seen the deteriorating side of North 24th Street, all of you present have a really awesome obligation to undo what wasn't done. We talked about what we haven't seen, but truthfully, everyone sitting here has the power to change something, and it can be organic. It's not that some imaginary hand has to come in and do things that we don't want to do. And, as someone who wants to see a new and revitalized North 24th Street, there's just such a beautiful opportunity here. So, however large it is, this community has faced so many hard things, but look, we're all still here. So we can fight through those hard things and really do our due diligence and do whatever it takes by all means necessary. That's how North 24th Street was established, as I know it, as many of the elders have told me that it was. So we can rekindle that passion for what this community is and restore it, but allow it to transcend. You're going to do so much for people my age and so much younger, so let's make it work.
Awesome. If you have not had the chance to register, that'll help my email list, to Amanda's point. Please take a moment as you leave the door, to make sure you've signed up. And if you are interested in the board, being in the board, I'd like to at least get your face and make sure I have a phone number from you before you leave tonight, okay? And with that being said, meeting adjourned.
I think we're done.
Awesome.
Thank you all. Appreciate the effort. Appreciate you all being here.